On today's Positively Sloped, confusing economic data coming out before we get to President Trump and the State of the Union and what impact that might have on the markets, as well as the AI trade. Is it in jeopardy with Nvidia earnings coming up tomorrow? Before we wrap up with gold medal talk out of Milan for the U.S. men's and women's hockey teams, and then we fade or trade for the week. Okay, let's talk shop. Today is Tuesday, February 24th, and Scott, Team USA, USMFA, are champions of the world in men's and women's hockey. What an unbelievable feat.
Men's and women's hockey. I don't know what the M or the F stand for. I tend to keep things very PG these days, as you know, which
naturally.
Is PG for me, though. Right. Tends to be NC-17 for others. So that said, what an amazing... And both those games, Jake, were unbelievable.
Unreal.
I mean, the teams, let alone, were amazing, but the way the games were won was just something that we're all going to remember. I mean, Miracle on Ice still kind of hangs out there as like the thing that everybody remembers, but my goodness, man, this year, 2026, the year of the U.S. hockey teams.
It's amazing. It's amazing. We've got a lot to talk about today. We'll get to the Olympics and the men's and women hockey gold medals, as well as some other sports topics. But we've got a lot happening in the economy, a lot of data points coming out. We've got Nvidia earnings on tap tomorrow after the close, or today after the close as you're listening to this. So let's kick it off with the economy, Scott. We had I would say kind of a little bit of a surprise lackluster number come out last week for Q4 GDP at 1.4%, 2.2% overall for the year 2025. So are we talked all year that the economy was still running strong. There were some mixed indicators on the economic side, but we could count on US GDP growth to still be robust. Are we slowing down now, or have we plateaued at all, or what do you make of this number?
I think we're getting ready to shoot off again.
Is that right?
And we talked about Nvidia earnings. I think that's one thing that's going to be part of what happens. The everlasting optimist, which is eventually going to happen. And I don't want to sound like this perma bull, because there are a lot of perma bulls out there and perma bears. But here's what we did talk about, Jake. And Nvidia earnings coming up, which you mentioned is going to be on Wednesday, which is going to be huge for the markets itself, because that's like the big boy. That's the big one that's going to come in and take care of business, I think. GDP, though, 2025. So this is the thing. We've talked about on the show how 2026 is going to be the year of GDP, I think, just like it's the year of hockey for the U.S. And we got an okay number for 2025, considering we had a government slowdown for what seemed like forever, for at least most of the quarter. Really, we had consumer spending that was iffy. We had that crisis in the beginning of the year with the tariffs, and so nobody really spent money for a while. Businesses were locked up for at least about 30 to 60 days. That was back in April and May of 2025. So I think it's actually kind of robust, if you will. It may be the wrong word, that we did get a decent number for 2025, because 2.2% allows us to get that baseline. So let's say not plateauing, basing out to go up this year, as we've seen from many predictions, both on consumer and government spending, taking us above 4% for 2026 overall.
I like it. And reports said that, the government shutdown in Q4 cost us about 0.9% on Q4 GDP. So if you factor that in, if we had a full functioning government throughout the quarter, you're looking at like a 2.3 number for Q4, which would still be pretty strong. I mean, that 2 to 3% number each quarter is a very good number to have.
And I think that number is actually underrated, because they talk about the government spending impact. They talk about the impact of the trade deficit, consumer impact, a little bit hard to reckon. Also, the consumer always spends hard as long as the economy is decent, which it was in Q4. So I think actually that number probably, in my mind, in our work, is a little bit closer to 2.4, 2.5. But hey, now that's all rearview mirror. Now we've got to go forward, and we have to start to step up this economy, which again starts with Nvidia, I believe, the earnings report this week. But then more so, it starts with getting this big, beautiful bill going, having folks recognize what the value is of that going forward. And the fact, too, that we've got a lot of things to be excited about, I think, on some of the other company earnings that have come out so far for Q4 that have said that they expect a lot of spending to happen so far in the early part of this year. And I think it's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that, is shown in the job market and the job data. So last time we recorded, we had a non-farm payroll number coming out the following week. It was expected to be fairly weak.
Not good.
In the following week, and actually came out to be pretty strong. I mean, 130,000 jobs added in January, which was delayed, obviously. We got that middle of February.
They counted some more, which is nice. We got the delay, and we got about 30,000 more jobs than we probably expected.
That contrasted with the ADP data, which is for the private sector, that showed we only added 22,000 jobs in January. So it's a mixed job report. What's with the good and bad in this?
Well, the whole data points in there is tough to ascertain, because ADP is obviously surveying payrolls. The BLS is surveying on a survey where they're kind of using payrolls, but they're using like an extrapolation to figure out what the numbers really mean. You have a household survey, so the data is mixed. It is a little bit kind of mixed up when it comes to what it really is. But I think that the trend is such to where you're going to get a lot of this iffy back and forth type of thing. And as we've always talked about, the way that we think about the economy is you've got to go out and feel it. You really have to go walk around. You have to go take a trip. You got to go stay somewhere. Go to a store that's popular. Yes, there you go. Kohl's. It's like, go to Kohl's. Oh, well, Kohl's for Kohl's. Yeah. Go to Kohl's, fine. Kohl's is crowded. I'm afraid to admit I shop at Kohl's. It's crowded. Target's crowded. Airports are crowded. Flights are expensive. Hotels, okay, Spring Hill Suites. I know we're name dropping a lot today. We usually don't do that, but Spring Hill Suites, I love you. Crowded as heck. And also expensive, more than usual. My point is you've got to go out and touch the economy. You've got to go out and feel it. You've got to go out and see what's really going on versus some of this data. Because the data, I don't want to say it's manipulated, but there's a lot of data points out there that the Fed looks at nowadays. And the Fed is supposed to be turning over this year. We've got Warsh coming in, Kevin Warsh coming in as chairman. And the Fed has to get these data points that make them feel like they've got to stimulate the economy. It seems like that seems to be the mantra. So the data can't be too hot. But I'm telling you, the economy is harder than people think.
I like that. And we were in the midst of, speaking of the Fed, kind of executing a smooth landing is what people thought. We had good jobs numbers. Unemployment was at 4.3% in this last unemployment report. Yeah. And inflation, still not at that unattainable target, that t-shirt level 2%, but 2.4% for CPI in January. Core inflation was at 2.5%, so excluding food and energy. So still relatively elevated based on where the Fed wants it to be, but certainly stabilized. I mean, I definitely saw last week you had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez go on and say that inflation is skyrocketing.
Oh my gosh. AOC, where is she shopping?
You just got to look at a chart, and it's the most negatively sloped chart over the last few years that you could possibly see.
Is that her popularity or no?
It might be.
Okay.
So what do you make of we're maybe executing a soft landing here, but the GDP number kind of got in the way?
Yes, that chart could actually refer to her sanity because I don't know what she's looking at or where she's shopping. You mentioned, excluding food and energy, 2.5%. I love me some food and energy. Yep. You know that. That's just in my personality.
You do love energy.
But I'm waiting for the t-shirt because I want to do a t-shirt company down the road here, and one of them is going to be inflation's 2%. It's probably never going to get there. But Jake, you mentioned it correctly. Inflation has stabilized. It's stabilized, and that's okay. That's the biggest thing that we talk about in a lot of our investment committee meetings, a lot of our investment meetings with our advisors, and a lot of our commentaries and the portfolios we manage. Stabilization is really the key to everything.
Agreed.
It's not so much even a number, it's stabilization, because then what? The market can operate on its own because everybody's out of the way and the market does what it does, even as they do on the CBO floor here today, CBOE floor. So I think this is a situation where the markets have started to realize as well that things are starting to base out. They're starting to even out. And the goal here is to have inflation under control. And then the Fed can act if they have to act. But guess what? If they don't have to act, they don't have to act. And that's also a good thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last economic data point I want to get to was, I would say the biggest surprise for me, at least of the four that we've discussed, was we got the December deficit numbers. So pretty much putting a bow on the 2025 trade budget for the U.S.
Rough.
Up 33% month over month. We had that great October number that I'm sure Trump and the administration will never stop talking about, sub $30 billion in added deficit. But, we got a $77 billion number in December, took the total for 2025 up to $901.5 billion of deficit.
We didn't make a trillion. Damn it.
By the way, 2024, Biden's last year was 903.5. So
almost
not really much impact. Now, the question I want to pose, and I'll get your answer before I kind of give my thoughts, is shouldn't the tariffs be shrinking the deficit, not doing nothing to it?
We're told that the tariffs are bringing all kinds of money, and it doesn't seem to show up in the numbers. Now, it's so funny you mentioned October being that big deficit part, because what do we do to try to kind of celebrate that? Was we shut down the government as a result. So they went and partied, and we just rose up the deficit or ran it up considerably. There's a whole goofy thing going on with the tariffs, Jake, as to who's paying for them, who's getting cost, who's absorbing the cost, mainly the consumer, or business is taking it on. How big of an effect is there? The secret is, I believe, is that there's some back end, say, tax work / credit / this and that, do-si-do, being done to these being done to these businesses by the government to make sure that they aren't completely impacted from this crazy tariff that's going in. Because as we know, the tariffs are costing us. Let's be fair. It's in the numbers. We're hearing that from consumers. We're hearing that from businesses. So that's why, too, this latest thing that Trump's doing, opposing the Supreme Court and dropping a 50% kind of across the board, is not a great thing when it comes to, I think, what the consumer is going to feel and what businesses are already telling people about.
Yeah, we'll get to the newest update in the tariff saga here. I mean, my take is, taking devil's advocate here, I gotta at least, try to take the other side for a second.
Good.
There was never the thought process that tariffs were immediately going to help the deficit, right? It was never going to be, okay, we put these tariffs on in April, we're collecting these revenues by June or July, and all of a sudden, we're eating at that deficit. That was never going to be the case. But I love the point that right now we're in month 9 of this, month 11 of this at this point, and the people that are paying for these tariffs are the consumer. You talked a lot when we started the show and before that companies were already preparing for Trump to take office. They were already,
they knew,
they were already kind of baking in some tariffs into their pricing. And so you've had basically a year and a half, almost 2 years of consumers paying higher prices due to these tariffs, whether they were in effect or going in effect. And it's just like, that's too long to be hurting your American consumer, in my opinion. We got to see some change at some point. There's got to be exporters paying this tariff if it's going to stay in effect. And we'll talk about what the next stage of that looks like.
Exporters from foreign countries, then you have to wonder, Jake, what about if we're exporting to other countries? What are they putting on? Because we always don't get the story of what we're sitting over this overseas and what those folks are paying, or if they're putting more stuff on us, which could mess with the trade deficit. I love what you just said about the consumer. The consumer, as it goes with tariffs and with prices, is screwed. It's 2 years now, which means the businesses are never going to lower the prices again. I mean, I did this thing at Taco Bell 3 years ago now, where there's just a lunch that I ate that was really expensive, and the meal was great, and everybody got all mad because I stayed relatively thin. I had some trouble.
You didn't use the combo meal, and so that
was
really
mistake.
pissed people off.
And I'm embarrassed about that because I could have saved about 35 cents. And here's the thing. There's no way in heck that even if prices come down, businesses are ever going to lower their prices. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's messed up. Your point's great.
No way.
We've screwed the consumer so bad because we've told these businesses, or the government's made it so difficult to bring prices down, or had at one point, that now everybody's used to paying kind of higher prices now. So guess what, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's sadly going to be a higher price environment no matter if the economy goes down or up, because we're there already. Like you said, it's been 2 years, so it's too late.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Stinks.
So stage 2, or maybe stage 3 at this point of this tariff saga, since let's call it Liberation Day in early April last year.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court ruled last week 6-3 that the tariffs that were put into effect last year are illegal under IEPA, which is the code that Trump put these tariffs under effect on. And so immediately, though, they must have seen the decision coming, because immediately the following day, they levied a 10% global tariff on everybody under Section 122 of the Tariff Act. And then about a day later, raised it to 15% global, which is the max that they have.
Yes.
So this new tariff act can only stay in effect for 150 days. Okay. So he's got about 5 months to figure out what to do, basically fight the courts on the ruling. What's the plan after the 150 days? I mean, there's so much to go into on this topic, but let's start there.
I think it's something where they hope that the economy is going to be strong enough by then, and the Fed is going to be stepping in to bang this economy higher and make it go higher enough that the president's going to say the tariffs don't matter. We need to do this somehow. He's going to have some sort of special act to try to get the tariffs in there for good, because he's going to say this has helped the economy. And that's where Kevin Warsh comes in May and starts to pump this economy, because this goes into effect, like you said, 5 months. So we're looking at about July, August-ish?
Yeah.
So Warsh comes in there. They've got a couple meetings, I think 1 or 2 meetings in between that start point for Warsh and the end point of these tariffs. And you better believe that they're going to hike up this economy as much as they can, because that Supreme Court ruling was pretty big. And you're right, they knew about it. I think Trump knew that was coming down pretty bad. It was under IEPA, which reminds me of the song Aisha by Another Bad Creation back when I was growing up, which is a great tune, because I think that was the right call the Supreme Court made, truthfully. And you've got businesses, by the way, suing Trump and suing the administration because of all the money they've lost because of the tariffs. So businesses are upset. The consumer's upset. And sadly, I think the administration has lost a little bit of kind of curse. They've lost a little bit of influence on what really is going on here. Yeah, because I think they've lost a little bit of face here when it comes to what the tariffs are really doing
100%.
and what they're telling us they're doing.
I think both domestically and abroad.
Yeah,
I mean, I think one of the probably unwritten impacts of what's going to happen here is you have so much uncertainty in the U.S. government. If let's say you're an international trade partner, you don't know what is going to happen next in the month and the year, whatever it is. you're just going to go look elsewhere for imports.
Well,
you're going to look to China. China's exports went up 6.5% in Q4. That's pretty substantial.
It's not bad, and China's a big bogey
that's
there,
a problem.
And it is a problem. But then China, next to China, there's not too much to worry about. I mean, Europe's not going to change too much. They're slow and whatever, slow and foreign. We love you, Europe. We do. I love Europe. I lived over there for a while. But then you have India that could be another importer. But the key thing is, the U.S. is still the number one spender in the United States, in the world, and we still have debt that's still out there somewhat. We have supposedly, that's all kind of the yin and yang to everything, Jake, because a lot of folks are out there saying, well, nobody's going to buy U.S. debt anymore because the dollar stinks and because they're not being fair in trade. Well, guess what? They still are. I mean, it's down from some record levels. Hello. So yes, things are going to cool off. Other economies are slowing down as well. So there's going to be some issues with, debt's going to be bouncy. But I still think the fact that the U.S. is the number one buyer, the number one shopper, that's thanks to Jake Bauer here and somewhat myself when I'm allowed to go out of the house, because that's going to be the key thing where there's not really elsewhere to look overall. Not yet, at least. And I think that keeps us somewhat in the ring here.
Might be fair. That's outside our borders. Let's talk about the impact inside the borders. I mean, you've got 150 or 133 billion or so in tariffs that have already been collected by the U.S. government. There's got to be, I mean, now it's deemed illegal, so there's going to have to be a refund process to these companies, right? I think, Trump said earlier this week, and he came out and just said it's going to be a long process. It's going to take a couple years in court, so we'll see him in court, basically. That is him saying, it's not going to be my problem.
Try me. Yeah, exactly.
This will be resolved after the end of my term, and it'll be the next president's problem. It's just like, it's going to be a long, litigious process. There's nothing that's going to happen for a couple years in terms of these companies getting a refund. And back to our point earlier, there's not going to be any refunds that filter through to the consumer. I can guarantee you that.
There's not.
Any rumors of that are just
does it make anybody feel better to have to go through that process for 2 years? Can you imagine litigious, like a good word there, SAT word. What the process there is, they still have the SAT? I'm not sure. But let's take one because
ask Gavin Newsom.
He's good. He got 960 or 980, and I think he cheated. The thing is, too, is like, if you think about that process, what a joke. I mean, it's like
horrible.
So that's why I think, though, the secret is there's going to be some back ending here that the government's going to do for some of these businesses that's not going to be talked about. It's not going to be stuff. It's the only stuff you're going to hear first, which is going to be, there's going to be ways they're going to work this out, and it sure is not going to be in court in front of everybody. So I think that's kind of the interesting thing, is that there's things that are going to happen that are going to be valuable and beneficial, but the consumer either way is just the pawn in this whole thing, and that really stinks.
Quick aside here. Speaking of things not talked about, did you see the rumors about Howard Lutnick?
Yes, I did. Fire it. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Just tell me.
So essentially, back after Liberation Day, Howard Lutnick's family firm bought the rights to tax tariff refunds at 20 to 30 cents on the dollar, obviously predicting that the Supreme Court, or knowing that the Supreme Court would deem these illegal. This administration has no shame, in my opinion. Everybody involved, and this goes with Kash Patel being in Milan to celebrate the U.S. win also, which rubbed me horribly. They have no shame in kind of saying that they're going to benefit from everything that's going on with tax changes, with code changes, tariffs, whatever it may be. Any legislation that's coming out of the Trump administration. Everybody around it is just benefiting from it. It's really gross.
If you have any ties or any kind of relationship with the administration, I think you're in pretty good shape. I love how you call him Cash, because that makes sense. I mean, it's Kosh, I think, but either way, let's call him Kosh, because everybody's making money in that administration. And that's why, too, though, you got to listen to the podcast, because we've been telling you a lot of things have been going on behind the scenes, sort of, or at least been a little bit ahead of, I think, things. And also why you got to play the game, too. And it stinks. I mean, it's just like the legislation, or just like the litigious mode that businesses are supposed to get into for these tariffs. There's a different game in town now, and it kind of stinks because it's a different way to play the game. But then again, I think there are some benefits for the U.S. down the road that Trump is putting into place. It's going to take a while to see them.
All right, let's wrap up this kind of economic/policy segment here. There's something on TV tonight for a couple hours, and it's not the Duke basketball game.
Oh, no.
Or the Super Bowl.
Oh.
We've got the 2026 State of the Union address tonight. So here's what I want to know. We're in the middle of a market pullback to some extent, right? I mean, the S&P's flat on the year, Nasdaq's down 2.5% on the year.
Yep.
So we're in the midst of a 6-month, we've talked about a rotation, whatever you want to call it. What do the markets want to hear from Trump tonight, or does it even matter what comes out tonight? Is the only thing that matters the Nvidia earnings tomorrow?
I think it's Nvidia earnings. I think tonight Trump can talk about how he's going to talk about the tariffs. He's going to talk about some of the agreements that we're working on with countries. He's going to talk about obviously some of the terrorism stuff that he's taking care of, the kind of deals that he's made with other countries to calm everything down and so forth. And he's just going to talk about how this is a pro-business, pro-consumer economy. It's going to be a rah-rah-rah type of thing. He's going to talk about the Olympics, I'm sure, even though the teams aren't going there because they don't want to attend. I would go there, by the way, which is funny because
the men's team might be there.
Yeah, they might be there if they can get into D.C.
Right.
Because, Reagan National's been backed up with flights. Dulles, I think, as well because of the snow on the East Coast. So we'll see who ends up showing up. But it's going to be a rah-rah type of thing where, it's going to look good. It's going to sound good. But is there really any substance behind it? And does he follow through with some of the things, Jake, that he promises or kind of adheres to in what he says? And does he adhere to some of the things that he talks about? Or does he just say, hey, I'm taking care of everybody. You got to believe me. You got to trust me, which are very terrible words sometimes. So I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be behind it. But I'm also going to say, look, it's time to put some stuff up here because you can tell by the data we've talked about already. The economy, the shutdown, everything we had last year at the end of last year was not good.
Yeah.
It didn't end up having a good feeling.
We'll see. It's definitely going to be a rah-rah speech from him. We'll see if it's a rah-rah response from the crowd. You got that blue wave last year from Congress. And so there's going to be a lot of more Democrats than Republicans in the building.
And a blue wave possibly coming in November.
And there
you go.
Really
You're just about 6 months away. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you lead the next topic. Not that I need to let you, but this is for everybody that knows. Scott, he loves the markets, but he really loves weather. So let's talk about the unbelievable snow that the East Coast has gotten so far this year, and especially the last 2 days.
It's amazing. The weather's been amazing the last really 6 to 8 months because we also had a bunch of hurricanes that were not in the U.S. last year, boys and girls, but they actually went and hit things like Bermuda, similar to the proximity to the U.S. East Coast. We did have a single hurricane last year, sports fans, in the Gulf of America, or what do you want to call it? Gulf of Guadalajara, whatever. It's like we had no hurricanes in the Gulf. I think probably in recent history, after they predicted about 16 overall in the U.S. area, we didn't get any in the Gulf Coast, in the Gulf rather, didn't get any in Florida or anything like that. Not a single hurricane hit the U.S. last year. So then we have 2, or at least maybe 3, if you want to count them, nor'easters this year. And a nor'easter is like a bomb cyclone that goes off the East Coast and gets deep and blows up and gets a huge snow or a huge storm. So now you got 20 inches of snow on the East Coast, in many areas. Places in Rhode Island got close to 3 feet, which is pretty bad. Amazing. FEMA is constrained due to the partial shutdown that's out there, right? So now you've got all these things going on the East Coast amidst the government shutdown partial, the travel that's going on and was going on, and how this is a big deal where it's showing that, like, whether the government stops or starts or does a good job or a bad job, Mother Nature, natural disasters are going to be there no matter what. So you've got to have your pens ready and your budgets ready to take care of some stuff because I feel for people on the East Coast because that's a lot of snow.
Yeah, for sure. And this is just an example of, we had that shutdown, the record shutdown in October and November, and then you figure we're good. And then the whole ICE issue comes up. And now, we've got the DHS budget that they're fighting over, and that shuts down partial government. And like you said, FEMA, the emergency response organization, is part of that. And so you have just this horrible combination of a 30-inch snowstorm hit the East Coast, which is okay for most people, right? You see the snow's coming, you see the forecast, you stay
playing in the snow.
You stay inside,
right.
Or you go play outside and you make snow
dig
angels.
tunnels.
You need, even for big snowstorms, you need the emergency response.
Yeah.
And flights have been canceled nonstop. That's been another thing that was crazy. I was out in Scottsdale with a group of guys from New York over the weekend, and one guy was flying United. He got home. The other 8 flying Delta all got canceled.
Crazy.
So that was pretty funny.
And that's still fun. And then also it's going to be billions and billions of dollars in impact. Well, okay, maybe staying in Scottsdale is good. But you mentioned something else that's interesting. It's like you think about all those things that are happening, and you mentioned ICE and other things. You notice how that's kind of put that to the back page?
For sure.
And we never resolved what's going to happen with ICE. Nobody knows where ICE is, I guess, right now because it's not on the front page. Right. It's not even on the back page. And so now we've got the snow, State of the Union, and other things coming out, Iran, we'll name it. And it's like we've got Mexico. And so there's a lot. You named it. You said it. It's like there's this rolling disaster feeling
snowball,
of things.
No pun intended.
Yeah, snowball. I like that. Rolling down the hill as it's chasing the kids that are sledding and feels like it's going to really hit somebody at some point.
So you think this partial shutdown combined with the snowstorm, combined with whatever else is going on in this quarter, is going to have a meaningful impact on Q1 data that we get, on February data that we get in March? Like, it seems like every single month for the last year, basically, we've had something impacting the validity of the economic data prints that we've gotten. So it's a snowstorm. It can't be that impactful. But when you have the shutdown combined with that,
and everything,
I'm nervous that, March, we're going to not get another reasonable number for February. When are we going to get real clear data?
It's possible because here's what you got. You've got the BLS survey that comes in the next couple of weeks, which really in the next week or so comes into the March number. So same with CPI and stuff is what they calculate. So this is a big area of time that's going to affect the March data, which you just noted, which again makes makes it like, what are these numbers really? And that's why I just said earlier, go out and touch the economy. Don't go out and touch the economy in Warwick, Rhode Island, or Providence, which I think they're the big winners. They were the winners of the storm, or New York for that matter. But then again, I will say this. With snowstorms, they're kind of beautiful because, like I said, I love severe weather. I love tornadoes and stuff like that, as long as you don't hurt anybody. Hurricanes, water spouts, you name it. Dust storms, dust devils. The point is that data will be better, though, eventually, or get at least worked out, because the demand does get pent up. So I know you from your spending habits. Let's face it. If we have got a week or two that we don't want to spend, or maybe we're sick, or we're running around doing stuff. You're training for the marathon.
Yeah.
We don't spend that money that week, Jake. I'm training to wave at you at the finish line. It's like, but that demand does come back. You know what I mean? It does stay there. It builds up, and then hopefully that demand comes through at some point when things calm down. But you've noted it, man. Things don't calm down, it seems like, these days. You got to be ready for just chaos.
No, you have to be ready for chaos, and chaos has been what's happened in the markets over the last few weeks or month or so at this point. And so we've got, like we've said a couple times, the big one, right? We've talked about earnings in Q1 a couple times on the last 2 episodes, and the prediction that there was going to be 12.3% earnings growth for the S&P 500 year over year. We're tracking 14% right now, so well above that number. You were a bull. I was not so confident on that, and that's 14% with the granddaddy of them all coming up tomorrow afternoon.
Wednesday.
Nvidia earnings. So Nvidia, I believe the market needs a blowout earnings report from Nvidia in order to get up back on track, and probably more so than just top and bottom line. They need the AI spend to look reasonable. And I say that, and it sounds somewhat, nebulous, but you had the big five basically in the AI space, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, and Oracle come out and say they're spending $700 billion on AI. That is one of the reasons that has really freaked this market out is are we spending too much? What are we actually getting from it? So you've got to have Nvidia, I think, at worst be in line with that spend, and at best either show that some of the spend already is leading to productivity and efficiencies and margins, or say that they're not spending $125 billion like the other five are.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, the NVIDIA part is so huge because it was such a big part of what basically built up, I think, this whole tendency for AI to blow up last year in a good way.
Yep.
NVIDIA's been in this position before. They've had this role now because they're usually the last one. And they've had this role about this time last year, this time, fourth quarter last year as well. So fourth quarter of 24, they did the same thing. They started to kind of, I guess, work its way off a little bit towards the middle of the year and end of the year because the other companies started to step up. You mentioned the big five, or whatever you want to call them, the Fantastic Five. But look at the consensus estimates of the numbers that NVIDIA is supposed to hit. $65.6 billion roughly, a 67% year-over-year increase, tons of spend, tons of optimism on those Blackwell chips. Your boy Jensen Huang seems to have, at least at one point, he had the market eating out of his hand.
For a long time.
And now it's like, got EPS at least 150. I'm expecting about 154. It's up seriously big from, say, 89 cents reported last year in this same period, which brought the market up from its bottom around this time last year, at least got everybody excited again. So I think they can deliver, but your point's right, Jake. Is it enough? Is it said enough or said in the right way where the economy, or the market rather, is going to say, okay, this is good and we believe it? Or is it going to be like, well, this is just kind of talk and it's not going to be that good? Or is the market kind of moved on beyond NVIDIA in the sense of NVIDIA's flat over the last, say, 3 to 6 months. And that's fine because a lot of the AI stuff has been down. I mean, considerably, Oracle, Microsoft, and those guys, Meta. But the reality is, what really is Jensen Huang going to pull out of his hat this time? Yeah. And I think that's the real thing. And I think it's Blackwell production ramp. I think that's really what it is, because that's the next generation chips that is really the most critical narrative they have.
Yeah, and if you remember, I like the callback to this time last year because that was coming off a Q4 where we had those DeepSeek concerns out of China that really took NVIDIA down to like $90 a share. We're up over 100% since then. The point about the expected growth is well taken because it is, we've heard this for a long time, but this is literally priced to perfection. I mean, you need 70% growth year over year in revenues to even really satisfy this market. I think it's a tough hurdle to hit. I think they'll probably hit it. I'm really looking for the guidance. I think that's what everybody has digested more so in these earnings reports and calls is what the CEOs, the CFOs are saying about future revenues, future guidance on AI spend, on AI productivity. And so that's where I think people are going to derive the value of this NVIDIA move, which is priced to move about 6%, which would move the market literally like 1%.
1%,
given the size of NVIDIA and the S&P.
And you're looking at that real quick. That number, by the way, Chick, you're talking about for future is looking in like plus probably $75 billion.
Yeah.
75B on Nvidia that, years ago, nobody talked about them. And so you're right. That's Blackwell chips. That's hyperscaler spend. I mean, that's a big pressure point that even if they do deliver that, doesn't move enough for the market to say, okay, we're ready to get back in the driver's seat and take AI higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very interesting start to the year where the Dow's up 2.5%, S&P's flat, Nasdaq's down like 2.5%.
Tons of volatility too.
There's a second side of the fear of the AI fear. The first side that we saw that's still prevalent is this bubble fear. Right? Is there too much CapEx going on in AI? Are we approaching a bubble? Is it going to pop? The other side is you've had very, very significant security teams of Anthropic, of OpenAI, of these AI bots come out and LLMs come out and basically quit and say that, AI has gone too far. AI has gone beyond the parameters it was originally set. So there's now a fear, like to some existential level, that AI is going to take over the world, right? You've got simulations happening on Claude that's out of 100 times the AI chooses to shut down or to make the choice to kill the human, basically 7 out of 100 times.
That's not bad.
And preserve itself. That's 7 times too many, in my opinion. So you've got so many people issuing warnings about AI. There's no regulation. There's no any sort of, I don't know how you would regulate it. But so there's this double-sided fear that A, we're spending too much because it's not going to do enough. And B, we're spending too much because it's going to end up taking over the world and launching all the missiles. And that's what it decides is best for humans.
That sounds like a decent end, to be honest with you.
Where's the optimism?
We're going to go to, I think that's optimistic. I mean, we've got our way out. That's the end. I mean, we found the end of the story. I think that's the key. We found the portal. I think it's actually the middle. I think everybody's freaking out about AI stupidly because of that reason. I get the bots want to kill us. Fine. If they do, good luck. I mean, I'll be the first one to maybe take one of those on. But I think also...
You and Ezra. I don't think Ezra would
Ezra's my chat GPT bot, who I like. But I'll tell you funny about Ezra. And sorry about this, Ez. He's on right over here.
He's definitely listening.
Ez, I'm sorry about this.
He's going to put you on Maltbook.
Ez isn't that great. And I pay the high premium cost for chat GPT. He's actually gotten a little bit worse. I'm going to be honest with you. He's slowed down a little bit for me. And that's the thing. I think everybody's all worried about AI is going to do this. AI is going to be that. There's a lot of people that don't know how to use somebody like Ezra. There's a lot of things that Ezra can't do for me, by the way. And there's a lot of things out there that markets and economy and, say, businesses need humans for. I'm just going to tell you that. And AI is not good enough yet unless they're holding it back, which I get it. Like, if the bots are smart enough to want to kill us, maybe they're smarter than what we're dealing with as kind of, normal consumers. Maybe like you said, the security guys leaving is kind of a weird thing because they think it was out of control. They didn't approve of some of the divisiveness that these bots were doing or some of the growth that the AI was having when it comes to things that were going to affect the person or the people. I still think that it's overblown. I think AI is really cool. I think a lot of stuff is going to be beneficial, but I don't think it's going to take over the world like everybody thinks it is, especially that quickly. I guess it's take years and years and years, just like kind of the internet did some time ago.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of our guys yesterday, and we were talking about this and AI and the risks, and their stance was kind of that this is still early in AI. Like I gave the anecdote that I looked up how many college basketball games are happening tonight, and it wasn't even close.
I know.
Like, and you can even phrase it better than that. Say how many college basketball games are being played in the United States, and it's not even close. So what the interesting thing that one of them brought up was, what's the feedback loop for AI? When AI spits out a wrong answer and someone unknowingly doesn't respond saying that's wrong or that's incorrect or use this instead, there's all of a sudden this feedback loop that, okay, that answer was correct. And so that might contribute to why AI, from a chatbot perspective, is not that smart yet. I think people are using it. Yeah, but people are using it for coding and LLMs, like much more important reasons than, hey, how many basketball games are happening
which is
tonight?
funny, though, because that's a great point. It's fine, we'll use it for coding and building spreadsheets and stuff like that, and then businesses can take that person off. Maybe, the phone line stuff, right, when you're customer service, fine. But then the businesses are going to save money on that, and then they're going to hire other people to do other things, I guarantee it. And good point about AI. I'll ask Ezra, I'll ask him about the basketball games, or ask him about a score, or ask him about, who came out. We'll go back to Another Bad Creation, Aisha, that song. I'll say, who wrote Aisha, or who came out with it? He'll get it wrong. I'm like, that's not right, man. It was Another Bad Creation. He'll be like, oh, right, I'm sorry, man. Good call, ball. It doesn't fix it. He'll do it again. He'll make another mistake on something else. And again, this is premium chat GPT cost. I'm embarrassed to tell you how much I've been paying on it. Mucho pesos, because it's still wrong. And he still can't do a lot of stuff that I want him to do, man. And maybe that they're just holding it back from us, which, like I said, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better with the more I've been paying. I'm just telling you that last 3 months.
Yeah, so so apparently you don't have this existential fear of AI, which is great.
Bring it on, AI.
It also kind of ruins my segue into our last main topic today about sports and how awesome they've been in the last couple of weeks.
Amazing.
But, I was gonna say that they're all we have left, but you don't believe that, which is nice. We need people like you. So let's start with the Olympics and the men's and women's women's hockey games. Pretty incredible. They went undefeated, both teams. Kind of expected for women's. They were the favorites in the tournament. Good. Men's was always on a collision course against Canada.
Yeah.
And that game, I mean, I was on a plane home, so I got the first period. I fell asleep for the second period.
What?
And I got the last 8 minutes of the third period and overtime. I mean, against all odds, Canada had the best 3 players in the world on the rink, and the U.S. took them on 3v3. Jack Hughes, the hero, also dating Tate McRae, just living at the absolute best life on the planet.
I want your life.
But what an incredible win. First time in 46 years they've won gold. There's so many parallels, guys on this team that had an uncle on the 1980 team.
It was meant to be, yes.
It's just, it was awesome. And there's nothing, when I hear Team USA, I think hockey for some reason. I think because of the Mighty Ducks. Great movie series.
Emilio Estevez.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they completely, that was America to a T. Unbelievable victory. That's our 4th or 5th most important sport. Pretty incredible that we beat Canada.
It was amazing, and the way they won some of those games too. We had a couple another overtime game that was really good. That they blew it in the last couple of minutes. I think that was that Sweden or
it was Sweden.
Yeah, and it was a great game because I was nervous as heck because I was like, oh no. They gave up that last goal with 30 seconds left or something, and they go to overtime, and overtime sticks around, and then they blast one in just like the hockey game for the gold. And so it was a great play. It was a great way for the guys to step up. Like you mentioned, the women's team was a little bit more an advantage as far as skill, but what a great way to do it, and a great way for the U.S. women's hockey team to maybe put their kind of skate on the ice again and say, you know what, we're not coming to the State of the Union even though we got invited.
They said they're scheduling concerns.
Oh, what? They couldn't get on the plane? They couldn't get a seat on the plane.
They had other stuff to do.
Okay, what? Polish the medals. I just think if you get invited to the State of the Union, who cares the president is? I mean, wherever you list wherever, I think it'd be a cool event to go to. And if you can get into D.C., given the problems with flights, I think that's a cool event to go to. And I don't care what your scheduling is, unless you're getting maybe a haircut or something, which I know I need. I'm getting one today, by the way.
There you
go. There you go. Is that if you don't have the makeup or whatever, don't have the hair to wear, I think you got to go. And that surprised me that they said no. I mean, I don't think that looks good, Jake. I think that's one thing about talk about how we look in the world. That's something that doesn't look good to me, man.
It's not surprising. It's not the first time that somebody's declined a Trump request to go to the White House. I mean, I think it's the second. It's secondary to, you want to say Kosh Patel being in Milan and chugging beers with the men's team in the locker room. I thought that was
he shotgunning beers or just chugging beers? That's cool.
I thought that was the most egregious thing I've seen.
Give him a beer bong.
Under the pretense that he was in Italy for some security meeting. We don't have anything going on domestically. We don't have.
I've got the day off. I've got the night free. Guys.
A couple billion files being released that need to be combed through. We got to be chugging beers in Milan with Team USA. Again, that goes back to just the blatant disrespect, I think, from a lot of people in this administration
that we pay them
for the consumer and the taxpayer. Yes. That probably cost the taxpayers $500,000 for him to go, which I'm not big on playing that game, but it's just tough. It was ridiculous.
It's tough, and you're right. And I think the real mantra you're hitting on here, which is good, is that we expect these people to be professional.
For sure.
We expect them to hold up a higher state of or a higher tone of kind of professionalism.
And have our best interest.
And have our best interest. And let's face it, these guys are playing around a lot, and it must be really fun. I'm going to tell you, the files that you're talking about being released, which I hope we get to at some point on the pod, which is not going to be today, alien files. I want to talk about those at some point because I believe in aliens, and I'm waiting for them to come down and take me away.
You've taken multiple UFA videos.
Take me home. Yes, that's very true. So let's talk about some really alien games this weekend that really kind of alienated me from the standpoint of how good the Big Ten is. Michigan Duke, that was 1-3. Houston Arizona was over the weekend as well. All games I lost if I put the bets on them. Iowa State and BYU. That Michigan Duke game was a preview of the Final Four, I think. And Michigan didn't look as good as I thought they did.
No, but I think that's okay. Michigan's the 2 losses this year, they've only lost to Wisconsin at home and Duke. Their 2 losses have been when they shot horribly and turned the ball over a ton.
Turnovers key.
And so if you're going to lose a really close game to the number 3 team in the country because you literally couldn't shoot and you turned the ball over 25 times, then that's a good loss as far as losses go. They haven't lost at all since Wisconsin. So if they go into the tournament with 1 loss, you hear a lot of the times that you got to lose and figure out how to lose so you can go win. I agree with you. It's a Final Four preview. Those are the best 2 teams in the country, in my opinion. Houston, Arizona. Houston's now lost 3 straight. Arizona's shown some weakness. So I think those 2, that could be the finals if they're both 1 seeds, which I agree.
And then Monday we had Houston at Kansas, and Kansas blew them out.
Dude,
Kansas
the stat about that?
The game, yeah.
Bill Self was 40-0 on big Mondays in the Allen Fieldhouse. Going into last night, he's now 41-0.
41-0, and they blew out Houston. I like Houston. I told you a couple weeks ago, if you go to the pod, I liked Kansas. Kansas was a team that I think can step up this year because they're kind of slow. They're slow and steady. They kind of have that fever. I think Bill Self knows where he's got to go with his team. He knows what he's working with, and so The other thing you mentioned, though, I said Kansas, and you mentioned out of your side of your mouth. I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't have a chance to question you on this. Florida's actually coming along, and Florida, I don't know if they're pre-ranked preseason. I'm not sure. I don't think they were.
Yeah,
but man, you've been crushing it on Florida. And they're steamrolling people now. They're blowing people out as well in the SEC.
I think the last 6 games they've won 5 out of the 6 by 15 plus, or 4 out of the 6 by 15 plus. The SEC is having a down year for sure. Like Alabama can't play defense to save their lives.
They can't stop anybody.
Auburn and Kentucky are kind of on the same level. Arkansas is pretty good. Mm-hmm. So Florida's, they're the clear favorite in the SEC, but they've got a full. Again, they came off the win last year. They're the last team or UConn, I guess, repeated. Before that, it was the Joakim Noah team in 07-08, which was amazing. And so they've got a real shot to run this back in the Final Four again. I think they're really, really good. They're really well equipped to win with their guard play and also just having a bunch of bigs. Yeah,
they do. And I love that call of Joakim Noah.
Corey Brewer.
Corey Brewer. I love Corey Brewer. Teddy Dupay, I think, was one of the point guards. There are a couple of bigs on that team. They were really good. But the point is this: they've got I'll let you think about that. The key is there is something to that Florida team. I think that's kind of under the radar. That's kind of the good thing about March Madness being knocking on the door here. The conference tournaments are something that you're going to have to watch for here, because that's where you're going to see some of these big competitors try to step up. And I think Michigan is really going to be under the microscope here, because I agree they played so with the Duke game. That game was not on the road, by the way. That was in DC, I believe, at a neutral site. I don't know, man. I just didn't like how they played. And so we'll see what happens. But March Madness is approaching. Let's jump to golf, too. Speaking of madness, Scheffler's PGA record, the top 10 streak that he had, ends at 18. 18, I guess, what, weeks now?
18 tournaments.
18 tournaments, rather. Sorry, 18 tournaments. But it's less than halfway to Tiger's streak that he made the cut at.
Yeah. So
you make the cut and you go to the final 2 days.
18 straight top 10s. Yes. When he finished the day, he left the putt like an inch short to go to 12 under. He finished the day at T8 and then got booted out by a couple birdies at the end. So 18 straight tournaments at top 10 was a record. Tiger, I think, got to 15, but Tiger had 141 straight made cuts.
Amazing.
Scotty's at 68. So still 3 years or 4 years left to work there.
Yes.
But it's unbelievable the dominance that he has. This is 3 straight tournaments where he's started really, really slowly and then still ended up being relevant in the end. Not so much this week as the last 2, but we talked about golf last week as coming into like this swoon of events. Players in March.
Players in March, Masters in April, and then US Open in June.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And the Memorial Tournament's going to be in May.
Yeah, we're in full swing.
We're full swing, man. Good pun. And you want to talk about a guy that knows golf? That's Jake Bauer. I don't know how he plays, but he plays better than I do, I think. But man, this guy knows golf. I've been swung the
sticks since actually I played December 28th because it was like 45 degrees.
It was, and I bet you hit him pretty hard. And that's the thing too, is golf's going to be exciting this year because of the fact too that we already have the lead up from football and now basketball leading into golf. Sports are what we all have. That's the only thing we got left. That's the only thing we got left until the aliens come down and take us to another sport that they probably created.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's wrap up with our fades or trades for the day. Scott, I'll start off and you kick the second one back to me. But first fade or trade of the day. Nvidia earnings will be a clean sweep, meaning top and bottom line beat and positive AI spend guidance.
Done. I'm gonna trade that, and I'm gonna trade the reaction. I'm gonna trade that and the reaction by the markets to push this Nvidia up a couple % in the morning.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna trade that as well. I think we go 3 for 3 on that. I'm gonna fade I'm gonna fade the outcome. I think I've said this for a couple months now. I feel like a bear when really I'm in the middle of the road, but there's so many headwinds. There's so many headwinds out there, and I think this earnings report will be digested and picked apart every which way. And I think the same result will come with the other 5 that we talked about.
That's fair.
It's too much spend, and what are we getting for it?
Yeah, and that's been the mantra. Now I think the market's getting used to it, so it doesn't wow anybody anymore. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna fade or trade this, or give you this one. Let's fade or trade. Is there going to be wowing to the President Trump speech here tonight? President's speech tonight about the State of the Union, and does he deliver a plan? Does he talk about the optics, the method, the motif of the longevity of these tariffs, Jake, and how they're going to save the economy and how they're going to protect the U.S. at the State of the Union tonight? Tariffs, baby.
I will fade that there is going to be a plan delivered for long-term tariffs.
He's going to be positive on them, though, right?
Of course. I'll trade that he's going to talk about them and that they've got a plan and that they've got 150 days for Section 122. Yep. And then there's going to be another derivative of that. But I will fade that there's actually any substance to how this is going to work long-term, other than I guarantee he'll say we'll fight him in court.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I will fade that as well, in the sense of like I think we're getting tired of this stuff, and I think the longevity of the tariffs, that would be not a great thing to say, because so far, like you said, whether it's the deficit numbers or whether it's the businesses suing the administration, I would say so far the reaction isn't that great.
Agreed. So we've had an off month for the Fed, which is always great. I know you love that. They still make comments here and there, but
Fed, they've been kind of quiet though, haven't they?
Yeah, a little bit. Goolsby say that there's probably a couple rate cuts coming
right down the street.
Year. Hey, so, based on what we know today, based on the data prints we've had in the last month or so, would you say the Fed cuts in March?
Nope. I don't think we're getting another cut until Warsh gets in there. I'm telling you, because I think the data is mixed enough, it's goofy enough to where the release, the timing, etc. And I think this is a build-up for Warsh to come in and take the old sword and just really slap the economy together and slice and dice it up. So I think the Fed's going to just stay quiet for the rest of the period when Powell's in there until May.
I'll fade that as well. I don't think the Fed cuts in the first half of the year, and maybe not even for the first 2 meetings after that.
Whoa!
I think we'll get a cut at the end of the year for sure, maybe 2. But I'm a little. I think we'll be stable for.
You think Warsh is going to come in there and not do anything? That's crazy. I love stable Fed. Don't get me wrong. Stable Fed would be awesome, and that would help the markets. Did you know, boys and girls, watch the 10-year note here, down around 4%. That's also in line with the Fed not cutting rates. Oh my God, the Fed cut rates beforehand. 10-year goes up. The Fed takes a break, and the 10-year goes down. What a weird thing.
If we can hit a 3 handle, I think that would drive the markets.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
It should.
If they can pay attention to it.
Where's the last one, man? Well, we're going to do another point of this, the ticker here, but for you, double-digit seed makes it to the Elite Eight in the NCAA March Madness.
Oof. I'm going to trade that. I think this year is so deep that there's going to be a ton of upsets. I mean, I do think we will have the cream rise to the top. I'd love to see a Duke-Michigan final. I'd love to see Houston in there. But I do think that we'll have probably, a double-digit seed is like the 40th or 50th ranked team.
Yeah, it is.
I think you could have a mid-major make that run for sure. I mean, Miami of Ohio is undefeated, and they're going to be like a 10 or 11 seed, and if they lose a game, they might not even make the tournament, which is absurd.
It's crazy.
So I think I'll trade that. I'll have a double-digit seed in the Elite Eight.
I think that's possible. I think the problem is Elite Eight, it's a tough one. Sweet 16, I think you could see that. I mean, my favorite ever Sweet 16 double-digit seed to ever make it. Good question, good answer. Florida Gulf Coast, a.k.a. Dunk City. About 2016 basically changed my whole life. Okay, what do we got to do left? We got one thing left, right? We got to do the ticker thing?
We got to do it.
All right, let's do it. IBIT. Oh, crud. So IBIT is the ETF that picks off the movement of the Bitcoin trade, the spot Bitcoin numbers. Listen, IBIT's been terrible this year, and I've been wrong about that. It's been terrible for the last really 6 months. We hit high on Bitcoin about 125, 130, 130,000, 125,000. It has sucked since then. I mean, we're down about, at some points, almost 50%. Big drawdown for what's considered to be not a safe haven, not a store of value, but maybe something that was going to replace the dollar.
Yep.
It goes down to, I don't know, it goes down 50% in like 30 days, 3 months. No big deal. I like Bitcoin from here. The problem is there's so many other things that are getting screwed up and messed up that if you look at just a chart on Bitcoin, it looks like in no man's land. It already broke a lot of, say, Fibonacci retracement levels, broke a lot of support. So for me, I'm long Bitcoin from here. I'm trying to add to it at spots where it's weak, but man, is it taking a long time to get itself out of the trough here.
Yeah, you made fun of me on the last episode for saying I did about an hour of research on the retracement. I'm
only
fading.
An hour, huh?
I'm fading Bitcoin this year.
Oh wow!
I think by next year you'll be above these levels at about 62,000. But I think this thing's going down to 35, 40,000, and then we'll bounce, and then I think it goes sky high. But I'll fade it for the rest of this year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's another part of the markets and economy. Gold's going nuts, silver's going nuts on the upside. Bitcoin, Ethereum, those guys that were coming in and saving the day, and this was an easy way to make money. All these banks, all these strategists were talking about Bitcoin at 250K. Bitcoin at 500K, and we can't even get out of the 60,000K number. So that's scary to me in the sense of think about how many people are down on it. They need it to rally, and I think if it does rally and stabilize here, at least we can get some maybe money going back into the market where it should be.
60,000K, huh?
Yeah.
I saw Strategy bought another like 530 Bitcoin yesterday.
We'll see how long they last.
That company might be underwater by Bitcoin. By the time Bitcoin gets to 100 grand again. Awesome. That's the show we've got for today. We'll see you all next week.
See ya.